to the speaking program today, please keep that in mind. It is my honor that Amy O'Leary, Executive Director at Strategies for Children,
getting no audio, and I don't know why it's the same as it was yesterday. Oh, fixed it.
And for logistics, for the first time we're live streaming the event, we want to thank Katerina Aragon Lopez and her team at TCGT Entertainment Productions for joining us today. And hello, everyone, just hello to Facebook and Twitter. Hello. We encourage you to keep the conversation going on social media. As you enter the space, you should have seen a sign that we have photographers, videographers, and that you are giving your permission and likeness to be used for our purposes. We also invite you to take photos, to post on social media, and engage in audience participation. So we have had a long history working on high-quality early education and care. In the past 2 years, we've really stepped into a convening role. First with our 9:30 call, and then more recently with the Early Childhood Agenda. The agenda was designed to create and hold space that not only engages, but builds shared power with the early childhood community because they are closest to the work and best positioned to identify priorities that will lead to meaningful and sustained change. We've utilized a protocol called the Elevating Voices Continuum, developed by Jessica Diller through this process, asking partners to identify themselves based on their role within the early childhood community. The intention is not to prioritize one voice over another, but rather ensure that we are together creating space for those with lived experience, including different perspectives than those we might find typically at decision-making tables. So right now, who is a one who works with children and families every day? Let's hear for the one. The COVID-19 pandemic shined an important light on the early childhood ecosystem in Massachusetts and created opportunities for significant change. The 9:30 call is a daily advocacy call for our community and began in the first day of the pandemic. It has changed the way that we do our work. In an ever-changing context, it is essential that the people who are closest to children and families had a direct line of communication both to each other and to decision makers across the state. It was during these initial months that we started to see this increased opportunity for cross-sector collaboration because we know that children and families do not live in funding streams. We have artificially created them. The 9:30 call also served as an orientation or boot camp, mapping programs, services, and building the understanding of the entire early childhood world and showing how everything can fit together. The agenda imagines, prioritizes, and builds collective action around equitable, impact-driven solutions by providing space for early childhood communities to work together for better policies. So this is really about coordinating all the good work that's happening already across the state. And so this community, we take a whole child approach, working across sectors for better policy development and thinking of solutions that might not be visible to just one person's viewpoint. Our vision of bringing communities across the Commonwealth to drive policy change has yielded robust discussions and a long list of challenges faced by caregivers and professionals. We will have today, as Brian wanted to say, the world premiere of the Early Childhood Agenda with 10 solutions generated by the early childhood community. It's important to know that the vision, guiding principles, and values cut across each recommendation. With the guiding principles, we're asking to imagine what it would look like in that first exercise we shared today. We know that EC 101 launched on last week and really can provide a foundation, and we have worked together to develop these initiatives together. Our vision statement, we work together to create, and our values, pursuing evidence-based solutions, advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, engaging and centering voices, leveraging the strengths of our partners, and providing space for the early childhood workforce to drive the changes so they are publicly recognized and valued as professionals. I want to give a special shout out to our colleague Titus Foster-Medius, who is not with us today because he has a cold. He is watching the live stream, so Titus. in, and then a view from the State House, which we are so happy to be here today. And now I have the honor of introducing Senator Jason Lewis and Representative Alice Weiss. I'm especially grateful for your leadership as Joint Committee Education co-chairs through the health crisis. To say that the decisions made by the Baker administration and Massachusetts legislature over the past 3 years saved lives may sound dramatic, but I believe it's true. Your commitment and dedication to better understand, listen and learn from educators and providers, ask questions, visit programs, hold focus groups, and work in partnership with advocates, business leaders, and your colleagues in legislature had a tremendous impact. The roadmap outlined in the legislature's Early Education and Care Economic Review Report, released in March 2021, will help tackle many of the persistent challenges we are here today to think about solutions for, including much-needed support for early educators. We have seen historic levels of investment from the federal, state, and local government. The FY23 state budget passed in July, and the economic development bill signed into law in November provided millions of dollars for young children and families, which I'm sure we'll hear about from our elected officials. We've also heard incredible news from the Department of Early Education this week about a pilot started for the existing financial assistance program system to provide immediate access to vouchers for income-eligible staff working in licensed early education and care programs. Hundreds of educators have called to try to access this funding. And earlier this month, the legislature kicked off the 2-year legislative session that will end in 2024. Last Friday was the deadline for bills to be filed, and today, happening in one of the hearing rooms downstairs, is a hearing around revenue and how much funding we'll have to work with for the state budget process that will kick off on March 1st, with Governor Healy submitting her first budget as governor. Busy time for you. We're so happy to have you both today. So please join me in welcoming Senator Jason Lewis and Representative Alice Weiss.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you, Strategies for Children. On behalf of Representative Keich and myself, we're just delighted to welcome you all to the Massachusetts State House, whether you're here in person or with us virtually. I'm so excited to be part of this event this morning. I also want to welcome our new state auditor, Diana DeGraffio. You know, back in the 1800s, Massachusetts, under the leadership of Horace Mann and others, led the way in our country in making a public education accessible to all children, regardless of their socioeconomic status or any other privilege that that child or family might have. And of course, today, nobody questions that, right? We don't take that for granted. Every child, kindergarten through high school graduation, should be able to attend free, high-quality public school. Well, I know that the vision that we all share is that we should take the same approach to early education and care as we do to K-12. That every young child and every family should have access to affordable, accessible, and high-quality early education and care in a setting of their choosing. And unfortunately, although we have made significant progress in Massachusetts, we know we're a long way from that vision. We've understood for a long time, on the basis of extensive research, how important it is to young children's cognitive development and social emotional development to have access to high quality early education. That is unprecedented. But I think what many people, more people, have come to understand throughout the pandemic is also how critical early education and care, including out of school time, is for working parents, particularly for working women, and how important it is for our employers. and our broader economy is. So I know that we all share a lot of hope and optimism that together, with the help of the public sector and the private sector, we can really make major advances this legislative session in reaching that vision of universally accessible, affordable, high-quality education care. As Amy said, we have been working hard on this together. The Early Education Care Economic Review Commission that I had the privilege of chairing with Representative Kaish, we had such wonderful participants in that process. I think really did put out a very strong blueprint for all the different areas that are in progress. And under the leadership of our commissioner at the Department of Early Education and Care, Commissioner Kershaw, we've already begun to make significant progress on those recommendations. For example, we now have a pilot program to provide subsidies to early education and care for child care workers themselves, something that we have recommended in that report as one example. So we have a blueprint. The legislature, and thanks to the leadership of Senate President Spilka, who's a huge champion of early education care, and Speaker Mariano, who's similarly a champion. The legislature appropriated hundreds of millions of new dollars for this sector last session, and we're fortunate to be able to offset federal dollars. And that is making a difference. We know we have a long way to go to make sure that early education is truly affordable for all families, and that we treat our early educators with the respect and the dignity that they deserve for the critical work that they do. We've got a great place that we're starting from this legislative session. We're going to build on the progress that we've made over the last few years, and we're going to do this together. I'm so grateful to Strategies for Children and all of the advocacy organizations that are here today, and all of the early educators and families and others, because we are going to join together and we're going to continue to do everything we can this legislative session, hopefully through our budget process and through legislation, to help us to realize that vision of high quality, accessible, and affordable early education care for all of our young children and families. So thank you all very much.
Good morning. And thank you all for coming this morning. Before I start my remarks, I'd just like to recognize Representative Day, who I see has joined us over to the left. And, I'm not sure, I don't want to miss anyone, but if there are any other members of the legislature here who have not been acknowledged. Not only for putting together this morning's event, but for all the work she's done over decades. The work that she did during the pandemic. I don't know how she did those 940 calls every single and I know that actually ended up being, I think, quite a good strategy. Long term, because I think it was a vehicle that really brought the provider community together and made everyone appreciate, the challenges that individuals were facing really were throughout the system. And that was, I always like to look for the silver lining of things, and I think the silver lining in COVID was a recognition, as Senator Lewis has pointed out, of the importance of childcare. I think many of us who have been working on this for years are very aware of it. I have always been a huge champion of high quality early education because I understand how important it is for success once children reach K-12. But I don't believe that the larger community understood the importance, again, as Senator Lewis mentioned, of childcare to our economy. And that became painfully visible during COVID. But one thing that I would very much like to mention, and really is I feel very strongly about, and that is the work that you providers did during COVID. Your homes and your centers for emergency care right away when others were not. I think was just remarkable and is grossly underappreciated. So I would just like to underscore how much I appreciate that, and I think those of us who work and are supporting expanding high-quality early education understand how important that was, and you do not get the recognition that you deserve. So I will just stop at that point, and I just want you to know I very much appreciate it. The other thing I'd like to say is, while one of the things I think we have to be careful about is, while there is a great recognition of the importance of childcare to economic development, and as Senator Lewis said, including after school, not simply young children in preschool or any other, is the importance of quality. And I worry that in the rush to expand access, that quality will be lost. And if we don't have high quality care, then the benefits to the children in terms of their long-term development are not as strong. And of course, high quality care is expensive. And so that is the biggest challenge I would say that we have. As both Senator Lewis and Amy O'Leary mentioned, we co-chaired the commission looking at childcare, and we came up with what, as Jason described, as a blueprint. I think it's a very good blueprint, and we have made, I think, incredible progress, given that report came out last March. I'm going to just, there's been mention of what the budget did, but I'm going to mention some specifics of exactly what that budget did, which is very different in terms of the past. And I, like Senator Lewis, would like to recognize the support that we had from leadership in both the House and the Senate. And on the House side, Speaker Mariano was incredibly supportive of getting something in the budget right away, as well as the Chairman of Ways and Means, Aaron Heidowitz. And that report came out in March, and our budget came out a few weeks later, and had significant funding, much higher than early education. So there was a historic $1.2 billion and $250 million in grants, which we're hoping to continue. $60 million increase to the early education rate reserve, which I appreciate is not sufficient, but it is typically that has been in the $10 to $20 million range. So having at the $60 million was very significant. And we also have some additional funding for professional development and higher education opportunities, which I believe are the most important things that we need to do going forward is to create to professionalize the child care provider and workforce, so that people can, we all know many people who would like to go into this field, but they have no, and many who go to, do early education, take major in higher education, but then discover that there's no way that they can possibly live on what the salaries are. So I think it's really critical that we establish a career ladder with very clear steps and recommended salary ranges, so that the whole system is professionalized and the work of all of the providers is recognized. So. Probably a range of views as to how we get to where we need to go. But my priority, and I believe the priority of the legislature, will be first to ensure that the elitist of children have access to high quality education and care. And that will mean additional funding and also mean expanding eligibility. Right now we have, I think first what we have to do is fund for all that are currently eligible, and then we will have to expand the eligibility. And all of this is going to take, I think, a long-term commitment, and it is not going to be inexpensive. So I encourage all of you to talk to your own legislators and remind them of the importance of this for everyone, because in the long run, the entire society will benefit from this, not just the children that you are serving today. So thank you very much for all of your time.
Our elected officials, it is not easy to be a legislator. Thank you both so much for your comments, for your leadership, for your connection, and to have champions in the legislature. It's just been an incredible experience. It is now my honor to introduce Marissa Fear. Marissa started with Strategies for Children as an intern, and then in the pandemic, she was released from her job as an early educator, as a director, and called Titus and I and wondered if there was anything that she could do to help. And so she became officially part of our team at Strategies. And we are just so happy. Marissa has been the leadership for the early childhood agenda, and she's going to talk more about the process and how we got to where we are today. So please join me in welcoming Marissa.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you today. Good morning to the live stream. Hello. I'm Marissa Fear. I'm the Associate Director of Research and Policy at Strategies for Children. And I know that we have many folks in the audience who participated in the development of the early childhood agenda directly, but we also have many members here participating in the organization. So we're going to kind of rewind the clock and go back to October and September and explain how this all started and what the early childhood agenda is. So to start, I want to begin by thanking Kim Lucas, who the story of the early childhood agenda really begins there with her work, and without her partnership, her generous attitude, and her coaching, the early childhood agenda would have been a very different experience. So I'd like to ask for a round of applause.
As far as I know.
Developing civic research agendas really informed the process that we use for the early childhood agenda. The early childhood agenda is a partnership, a process, and a product. A product we share a little bit about today. It's a way for the early childhood community to connect and build cross-sector partnerships, a way to engage the community in consensus building around the priorities and needs. We started with a list of hundreds of challenges and solutions and eventually narrowed it down to 10, which was no small feat. Finally, the product which we are sharing today and really previewing the exciting work that is. We also noticed that a pattern emerged throughout the development of this agenda. That we began with brainstorming, we moved into editing, and we finalized with voting. So again, brainstorming, editing, voting. Sort of repeated that cycle over and over. We started by asking our partners what was the most significant challenge children, families, and the early childhood workforce face every day. From there, we narrowed that list of hundreds of challenges down to about 5 or 7 for each of our working groups, which I'll share a little bit more about. Each of the working groups then launched a survey in which we asked members from all across Massachusetts and the early childhood community to narrow in on the top 3. From those top 3, we developed solutions and eventually narrowed that list down to the 10 that you'll see presented today. So lots, again, brainstorming, editing, and voting that narrowed us down to the top 10 solutions that we're going to be sharing today. We also know that there are data and research questions that are connected to each of these priorities. And the exciting work of the next few months is going to be really digging into some of those data implications and some of those research implications so that we can have a better grasp of the information that we need in order to push these priorities forward. And then finally, action. This is really just the beginning of the early childhood agenda. The agenda is designed to evolve with the work over the next 2 years, and right now it exists in the form of a list that previews these 10 priorities. But over the next few weeks, we're going to build out our website. We're going to provide necessary details about who's leading which pieces of this agenda, and the different elements of each recommendation, and share that information. So there's more to come. Please visit the website as we continue to add context to this over the next few weeks. And now to share a little bit more about our working groups. The working groups identified, coordinated, and elevated priorities that have been shaped by community voice and needs and the different perspectives and lived experiences of our early childhood community. The 5 working groups focused on different aspects of the early childhood system. So you'll find icons for these working groups on the document that we shared today, which shows where the recommendations originated. The 5 working groups are financially secure families, high-quality experiences, a thriving early childhood workforce, robust system infrastructure and local partnerships, and healthy beginnings. Working groups really meant to articulate what we hope to see from the early childhood system that we are fighting for. Strategies for Children has really acknowledged that we are not community organizers, but we found a space for ourselves in sort of this organizing of different communities, both through the 930 call and now through the early childhood agenda. The agenda relies on long-standing partnerships formed throughout Strategy's 20-year history, on the 930 call, and long-standing partners that participate in this work. It also seeks to build new relationships through a process designed to support cross-sector collaboration and push for integrated and aligned early childhood policy. We relied on these partners who have existing and trusting relationships with early childhood professionals and parents.
Do you have audio? Yeah.
To extend the reach
But
of the
I'm
early
seeing
childhood.
comments saying that it's not very good,
We
so
use
I'm
a
trying to
variety
figure
of
out
tools
what's
and
going
engagement
on.
opportunities such as
Is it
so
like understandable that
conversations
just
on the
the audio?
930 call, we
I don't know
see
what
the
they're hearing on their end. I'm
Do you have
just
do you
hearing
have
what
like
I hear.
diagnostic look? Would you have a link to this live stream that I can?
It's just on their Facebook.
Okay.
We launched a variety of online collaboration tools. So we utilized Basecamp and group apps to sort of collect feedback and to invite conversation in sort of virtual space. We also recognize that this is something that we have to get better at collectively as an advocacy team, that building these relationships and creating these spaces takes time and energy. And if we want the agenda to have the designed impact, then we need to continue to build on this foundation for collaboration and engagement. The 10 priorities that we will share later today were developed over the course of 4 months and 8 meetings. They were workshopped by over 1,000 different participants who contributed through countless discussion boards, chat comments, group map ideas, survey responses, and votes. The survey was available in 7 different languages. 65% of the individuals who participated in the development of this agenda work directly with children and families every day, and more than half are caregivers for young children under the age of 8. And finally, the participants of the early childhood agenda represent every corner of the Commonwealth, and at least 50 individuals are from each region of Massachusetts. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Amy, who will introduce the speakers.
From people who are directly working with children and families each day. We know how difficult it is for folks to join an event in person at the State House at 11 a.m., and so we wanted to make sure that their voices and perspectives were here. This quote by one of our 930 call warriors from Granby, Massachusetts, Donna Danette. And then in our conversations about supporting the early childhood workforce, Diane Ether, the education coordinator at Webster State Daycare, said, "What would it look like if the career lattice was developed by ones, by the people who were doing the work?" And that was the spirit of the agenda. What would it look like if people who do this every day had impact? So we're going to hear from 3 folks who were part of the process, and also about their why, what their hope is, and how they think this work will help change things for children and families in Massachusetts. So I'm going to invite up Shannon Toulouse, Bihan Barrett,
and Yolanda Ramos. Can you all rejoin us at the podium?
I can't get to it.
Good morning, everyone. I feel like we should have music and dancing and champagne and all the fun things. My name is Shannon Spence. I am Northeast Regional School Nurse Consultant. So currently I work with school nurses. I don't work directly in early education. When I first moved to Massachusetts in 2001, I took my first full-time job since my son had been born. He was 3 years old in Head Start as a Head Start nurse. What incredible work that was. That was in Lowell, Massachusetts. I resigned in Haverhill. I lived in Haverhill since I moved. Working with early education professionals and teachers throughout the field. I'm not working in early education right now because there are no roles for me really in early education besides for a child, what they call a child care and health consultant, which is a most of the time unpaid volunteer position, sometimes just a name on a piece of paper. COVID-19 really, I think, opened everybody's eyes to all of things we're talking about today, including financially secure families, the high quality that we need in our education system, our early education system, the incredible work that women and men and people have done every single day during the pandemic to make sure that our families could work. Our kids had safe places to go if they were learning, and they were getting ready for kindergarten. So that's why I'm here. You know, I had some fun, fancy notes that I had prepared, but as I was driving down here, the excitement was building, and I just really couldn't help but speak from my heart because my heart tells me why I'm here. And then I remembered, you know, I had some fancy sentences about why I was here. Then I said, well, why are you really here? I started with 5 whys. If anybody's ever done that exercise. I am here because of children. Because children in the Commonwealth, children across the world, of course, but we're talking about children across the Commonwealth today, deserve to have opportunities to have high quality early education in safe places with incredible experience, high quality staff, and we're building it, we're doing it, and this is so exciting, and thank you for having me.
So I wish we had had time to check this more.
So I think the audio isn't from the mic, but from like the over. That's why it's echoing.
Because I can't get the signal from the mic to come in through the live stream, and I can't just like stop.
You could. But I mean, the audience still stay.
It's not great.
I don't do it because I've been there.
I
I
started
don't do it
recording
because I've
the
seen
audio
the
from
steps.
the microphone.
I've seen the barriers. I've seen the facts. I've seen the challenges and the difficulties that we all go through. I do it because I learned and I have been taught by families and children that they're so brave, they're so resilient. We all are. And I want to come to the table with not just issues, but be part of that solution for these families and children. I learned so much from them. And so with them not being able to be here or be at the table, I want to bring their perspective. I want to bring their creativity. We do it. Why am I hopeful about this agenda? Just look at the icon for the agenda. It's action-oriented, right? We are weaving this tapestry that reflects our Commonwealth, our families, and our children. And so that's why I'm so hopeful. I'm hopeful because of the process, right? We're working together. I'm a social worker. So my professor at the University of Bridgewater will be very proud of me because, you know, yes, it's in my blood, social justice. That's why I'm here. Every day I work with 500 children, and at the end of the day, this is really why. Look at this picture and this picture. These families, these children are falling in love in those moments. And it's those moments of falling in love that really develop their brains. And I know this because I'm in early intervention. And that's what we try to help families do, to find more moments to fall in love. And so please, fall in love. And so I just want to leave you, today is the third day of the Lunar New Year, and on Sunday I went to the temple as my tradition, and I always get very excited at the temple because, I get my red envelope, but inside that envelope, it's a saying. Every year I get a saying from the temple, and this year, it specifically says that, the quote I got is that, beautiful words will be nothing if they are not put into action. And so this year, myself, and I want to do that work. I want to take actions. Advocacy is all of this good compassion in action. And so I'm going to do it. And so let's just do it.
I wasn't so, creative like I did for this speech. So 66,428. Keep that number in mind. My name is Yolanda Ramos. I'm a Whistler. I'm a consultant for Together for Kids Coalition, the director. I'm a mental health provider, and I'm also part of Striking for Children Advocacy Network, which is one. I take part of many different organizations and committees, but the best role I have is being a mom. When my daughter was 3 years old, she told me she was going to be a boss. Not wanted, she was going to be a boss. It did not take me very long to realize she meant business, and it can very well be true. I remember seeing the fire in her eyes, the ambition, the determination, a 3-year-old, which I didn't see in myself. And every day, she would question and challenge me, and challenge my own pride and motivation. And here I am feeling inspired by a 3-year-old in questioning my life choices. I can tell you that no fancy academic degree will ever put things into perspective like a small child. In that moment, I feel that I need to do more and to make sure that this little human with big girl personality had everything she needed to make sure she became a boss someday. That's truly true. That's why I do it. That's why I'm here. 66,428 was the number of the average number of babies born in every year. That's over 66,000 doctors, future bosses, politicians, teachers, mechanics, therapists. If we as a community can ensure that every child in Massachusetts has a healthy start with financial stability, high-quality child care, education, effective medical, mental health support, then the future of our community is bright. Together for Kids Coalition, like many organizations around across Massachusetts, are working independently with their local communities, real fight grants, to sustain programs in their own communities, and to work for the well-being of children research. But if we can truly put the well-being of our youngest children first, we can work in sync to integrate a statewide, comprehensive early childhood system that works for all young children. We must invest and we must refocus our attention on the significant impact that early years have on each child and individuals in our communities. We must work together, communicate, understand the needs, the gaps, and the strengths of our early childhood system. The early childhood agenda is doing this, bringing together the perspective of all providers, community leaders, and of course, of families like me. This was a collaborative process of idea sharing with the mission of demystifying that complex early childhood system in Massachusetts. It was exciting to see how much passion. It was wonderful. There's so much passion in the field. People who work with children every day, all those ones and the twos, and the parents, and even the three who just really want change in our early childhood system. So it was easy to see that we all share a common goal, and that's the well-being of our children. The early childhood agenda can and will make significant changes for the families in our communities, by putting family voices first and by structuring early childhood system that focuses on community partnership, which I love. I look forward to continue working with the early childhood community in Massachusetts as a whole, and I wish that we don't feel alone. So going to these meetings and hearing from families, we feel like, oh, we're not the only one. We all want the same thing. So it was amazing to see. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for all the providers, for all the educators, and thank you for all the parents.
As Marissa highlighted, this process relies on long-standing partnerships. I think I've known Mo for most of my 20 years at Bennett Strategies for Children. Mo is one of the best facilitators in human meetings I've ever worked with. We relied on his advice and support at each meeting and behind the scenes as we worked together to co-construct agendas, consider desired outcomes, make decisions, and continue to build trust and strengthen relationships. One of the first questions Mo asked us was, can you build community virtually on Zoom to do this work? Our team believed we could. Thank you, Mo, for helping us believe. Your expertise, knowledge, and understanding of early childhood, and the people who choose to do this incredible work is reflected in all you do. Your leadership and insistence on equity and inclusion has been critical to the agenda, and we are grateful for your way of challenging and pushing us to have a big, bold, achievable vision for children and families in Massachusetts. Mo!
Thanks, Amy. There's literally nothing else to say. So I'll say a few things. I was coming up here and I was like, how do I follow these three women? And as often the answer is in the question. What I need to do is follow their leadership. I'm going to put that out to the rest of you. That we need to follow the people who are doing this work, who are the foundations for what the rest of our society gets to do. And someone else is taking care of our children. And someone else is looking after their well-being. And someone else is making the best choices for them and with them. So I just want to start there that we need to follow the people who are the backbone of this work. And that's something that Strategies for Children did really well. And so I want to make sure that I'm not up here taking credit for, helping them organize the agenda and talk nice and things like that. They were well on their way. They needed somebody who was not afraid to talk to them. Basically, that's all. But I do want to say that many folks have laid claim to this statement, so I'm not sure who to credit it to. I keep hearing different people. But the statement is that, how you do things will outlive what you did. How you do things will outlive what you did. How people felt, how they were treated, how they were engaged in the process will outlive the results of that process. These 10 things are achievable. So there will be more things to do, but the part that's going to remain, the part that's really deeply important, the part that I'm so proud of how Strategies for Children and this group came together, is that they really listen to one another and listen to the voices of the people like these women who are at the forefront of the community. That their choices and voices were central to what you see in these 10 things. That process was on purpose, it was done every time, and it was inclusive by extending different ways for folks to be a part of the decision making. I really love that the survey was in 7 languages. English is my 3rd language. I don't look like the face of early childcare, but I'm an immigrant. I'm African. I'm Muslim. I have so much more in common with the people doing this work than what this looks like. I want us to challenge ourselves a little about who is it that's doing this work. That we actually reach forward and support them and make sure that they are centered in how we take up the advocacy for this and who actually benefits from it. And so I want to just say that our friends, Amy will never take as much credit as she deserves, and her team will also, they like hide every time you look at them. They will never take as much credit. Somebody's like behind the thing over there, back there. Some people are online, they wouldn't come here. Titus doesn't have a cold. Titus is sitting back with like an iced tea or something. He just doesn't want to show up in the front of things. But it's really important that someone like Amy O'Leary stands up. It's important. She's been doing it for 20 years. Stick around. This process has been to reach whoever they are, wherever they are, ensure that their voices are part of the process and that their ideas are part of the process. I was thinking that, it was hard for people to get here today, but much harder to get here for you. Right? I'm looking at these stairs like, somebody climbs that every day, but if you're 4-year-old and struggle, a 2-year-old will crawl. And if we're not speaking for them and their interests, then their interests are not here at the State House. So if we do anything else, let's make sure that we bring their voices and their things to the foreground, that we bring what they need and what they should have to the foreground. And let's make sure that they don't get just what we can give them, but they get what they deserve. Thank you all so much.
So we will have copies of the agenda here, and then it will be online this week. This process produced hundreds of ideas, big and small, some related to the legislature, some requiring funding, some related to state administration and changes to regulation, and some trees turn. Many call for better coordination, more awareness, and building on our collective power. As we mentioned earlier, this is just the beginning. This is meant to be a living document that will evolve with the work over the next 2 years. Consider this a preview. A more comprehensive version will live online as more details continue to emerge with the start of the new legislative session and the new administration. Please visit the website for updates and further developments related to the agenda over the next 2 years. And finally, the voting process has elevated these 10 priorities. So what you'll see on this document is that they are listed in order of priorities. So number 1 was the agenda item that received the most votes. Next to each priority, you'll also find icons which signify which working group developed these recommendations. You will also see either an identified lead advocate organization, someone who is a coalition who is currently working in this space, or a sign that signifies opportunity to lead, where there's a system gap where we need to think about how we can come together and push this priority forward over the next 2 years.
We will continue to push ourselves as we challenge everyone to think about the whole system, about the 5 topics we covered in our working groups, and as you'll see at the top of the agenda, and the pun is intended. When we can clearly articulate our challenges, we can then identify possible solutions, including ones that we maybe hadn't thought of before. If we assume the solution before we state the challenge, it's more difficult to get creative and innovative. Thank you, Dr. Kimberly Lucas, for these wise words and your critical partnership. We have some next steps. You'll see on the screen. We will post everything online. You will find the recording, the agenda, the slides, and then we also have a take action. So we are going to be working with the coalitions that exist already. Many are planning events here at the State House. We are going to be looking at all the bills that were filed on February and on Friday. We're going to really think about how we can come together around the budget to use our collective action and power on behalf of young children and families. When you leave today, please stop by the table. You can get a hard copy of the agenda. If you hadn't had a chance to sign in, and take the opportunity to mix and mingle. Enjoy our refreshments over there. And the last slide should be the SSC team, Jenna. Jenna, who is sitting behind this frame right now. Jenna, thank you. So please help me recognize and honor the